So what we're going to do here is the three of us we picked one of our scripts each, and we're going to show you some things about how they went from premise to episode.
This is the behind the scenes that has ever been seen.
Super behind the scenes, yes. Nick's going to go first.
Yeah.
It's 10. It's 10 o'clock.
Oh, let's go. Start it up.
It's going.
Guys, I'm going to talk to you about Party Pooped. But the story, as I put this together, I realized it's actually sort of the story of myself and my journey of tears, of learning how to write on the show. Because before this, I had never written on My Little Pony. Up until that point, I had done a lot of boys' action stuff. And that's where I met Mitch, actually, like over where we worked together on Kick Butowski, and we had done a couple of things before that. But I came into this thinking that I knew what I was doing, but writing Party Pooped was like having my head held underwater for 3 months straight, and it was very difficult. So here's how things go from start to finish. Step 1 is the Story Summit, where you pitch that poop. So I was invited to the Story Summit. It's very exciting, and what that is, for those of you who don't know, it's a bunch of writers sitting around pitching ideas. There we are. You can see there's Mitch in the middle. Your hair is really darkened since then.
Haber has not aged well.
There we all are. So here's my actual notes from that meeting. You know, you bring in a bunch of, they're called log lines. It's like 1 or 2 sentences. And so at some point, I was like, hey guys, what about, it's sort of like 7 years in Equestria. Pinkie Pie loses her mojo. She goes on a journey of self-discovery across Equestria, hiking, eating berries that make her trip her face off, and maybe she meets a spirit guide, grows a beard, etc. Etc. An episode. That's what episodes are like. And to my surprise, based off of that nothingness, boom, logline approved. So now I just have to come up with a story and write and figure out how to. Okay, luckily step 2 is you don't just jump right into a script, you write a premise. And a premise is a 1-page or so document, and Mitch kind of helped break the story with me a little bit. It's sort of the 30,000-foot view. I'm not going to read it word for word, but this is word for word of kind of what it was. So basically, the story was that we came up with, there's a party that needs planning. It was going to be a Cutie Mark anniversary party, and everyone assumes Pinkie Pie will plan this party naturally, but oh no, she doesn't have any ideas. She's lost her inspiration. No matter what she does, she can't think of anything. So she decides to go on a vision quest all across Equestria. And meanwhile, while she's gone, her friends sort of had this oversimplified conception of who Pinkie Pie was. They try to figure out how to plan a party without her, and they all kind of imitate her and try to channel Pinkie Pie, and it fails disastrously, and they ultimately find her party cave. So that was there since the very beginning. Meanwhile, Pinkie's vision quest culminates in a journey atop a mountain where she meets a party planning guru who was maybe going to be cheese sandwich, it said. And so you may be wondering, the big question of the hour, where are the yaks? Where are the yaks? They came next in the story-breaking session, which took place in a room over at Hasbro called the Pound Puppies Room. These are our emails. I thought the Pound Puppies Room really sounded adorable. I said, you guys have the best conference room names I've ever heard. Mitch wrote back, wait until you see the Pound Puppies Room. It's the most depressing place on earth. And I said, how depressing could it be? And the answer is really, really depressing. Why is it so depressing? And so it was in this room where we said, well, what kind of party is this? Mitch was the story editor at the time and put the smackdown on it and said, it can't be a Cutie Mark party. We're doing something else with a Cutie Mark party, or that's a stupid idea. I don't remember what it was. But so we said, well, she's a princess now, so maybe it's something international relations. Foreign horses could be coming. What's a foreign horse? Is a yak a foreign horse? I think Mitch might have said, they could be from Yakistan. And I said, that's stupid. It's Yakistan. And then, boom, that's how the yaks came into the show. So after that comes the outline, where you outline that poop. And an outline is kind of intimidating because you have to flesh out every moment of the story. But Mitch was there to offer a few suggestions here and there, just like light little nudges. Oh my God, I have this idea, what do you do? Again, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but there's a few parts that are kind of interesting. One of them you can see, the original idea was that the yaks didn't actually talk, and they were going to just have yak sounds, and Fluttershy would translate for them, so they kind of went, or however yaks sound. Yeah. And then the Act 1, the main story opened with Pinkie Pie singing a party inspiration song where she would go all over town trying to find inspiration, except jumping ahead, they gave the note, Season 2, in place of a party inspiration song, could we show the other ponies trying and failing to impress the yaks? There's too much saying how bad it's going, and it would be really funny to see. Okay, we'll try that. Later in the outline, it's Pinkie Pie's adventure. She gallops through the jungle. There's spears flying at her from all directions. I was just trying to find something to impress the yak. She calls back to an angry tribe of lemurs. She skids to a stop. They're closing in. They stop. One of them points out, behold, an ancient statue of a pony who looks just like Pinkie Pie, for she is their god. Caution that the ancient... has wings. What a surprise. Caution that the Pinkie Pie statue is not their god and that they are clearly not worshipping it. We avoid religious elements in children's programming. All right, well, maybe my next idea. Pinkie Pie's been painted white for the lemur welcoming ceremony. We have tribal drumming that gets more intense in the visual tribe. The visual style becomes surreal. A cave painting like lemur shaman shows a cave painting Pinkie Pie a vision of her future self. Caution that the lemur tribe, tribal drumming, and cave painting, thing, basket, thing, and shaman do not resemble or seem to portray any real life reveal. We want to avoid the specific that we are stereotyping any group negatively. Stern, but fair.
See how this fuels creativity? All these notes?
Yeah, this is just the beginning. And then, just to kind of give you a glimpse of what happened, the idea was that she eventually found her way to the top of a mountain where Cheese Sandwich was there, but I was told we couldn't get the voice of Weird Al to do it again, so he had taken a vow of silence. That's called writing. It's clever. And she met a party planning guru named Lampshade, who was just like partying all the time. And he said, "Are you here to replace me?" And she went, "What?" And he said, "I'm out of here." And then just left her there. And now you have to stay on top of the mountain, Pinkie Pie. And she had failed. And they were like, approved with all those notes. So on to the first draft. It opened totally differently. It opened up with Twilight and Spike organizing books, and they were totally caught off guard by the yaks arriving early. And Pinkie Pie, remember this? And Pinkie Pie, Twilight, it was sort of more focused on her, being like, "Oh my gosh, it's so good to meet you. The yaks aren't welcome. Oh, it's a misunderstanding. Oh, ponies don't like yaks. Yaks burn equestrian to the ground." That's pretty intense. What page are we on again? Page 2? Oh, God, okay. Do you remember this? This got noted to death. We thought it made total sense that Pinkie Pie would do like a Werner Herzog-esque narration of her own quest. So we had her...
So my quest begins.
The journey will be fraught with peril, yet if I am entered to entertain our quest... No, they said, don't do that, that doesn't make any sense. We also kind of fell down this rabbit hole that we kind of thought was funny, where she meets this leaf that's kind of shaped like a cupcake, and so she calls it Cupcake Leaf. And then it was kind of like Wilson in Castaway, the volleyball, where Cupcake Leaf follows her along, and Cupcake Leaf, let's go, this will be my companion, and its name shall be Cupcake Leaf. And off they go, and then later she's like, "Cupcake Leaf, this is it, we're going up to the top of the mountain." And then she says, "Cupcake Leaf, I really love you, I just want to tell you, and then, no, it's so sad, because when she fails, Cupcake Leaf dies, and she goes, "Cupcake Leaf, no, Cupcake Leaf!" So there were 3 groups of notes. They come from the Hub, and they come from Discovery Family, and they come from DHX. I said, what a fresh, fun voice from Nick. There's some really cool moments in this episode. Woohoo! Hasbro Studios were still super psyched about meeting a brand new race, but there's some finessing we need to do. All right. DHX, we can appreciate that this is Nick's first stab on the show and that he's still getting used to the tone and characters' voices, but we have some major concerns.
By the way, DHX always has major concerns.
So on to the second draft, where you fix all those problems. And so the way we decided to fix them, they thought the opening was a little confusing. Why didn't Twilight know about the yaks coming? Of course she would know. So we added in a whole lot of complicated stuff to explain it, you know. Oh, who are these guys? The yaks? Well, they're not welcome yet. Oh, there was a calendar misunderstanding. Ponies use calendars? Yaks hate calendars, smash. That'll explain it. And then they wanted to clarify Pinkie Pie's motivation. So we went through and added a whole long speech and a whole thing where Spike said, "You know what the problem is? Nobody knows anything about yaks." Then Pinkie Pie got this idea. That's about to change, but it was pretty complicated. And then we also wanted to make her journey pay off in the end somehow, so we added a whole lot of complicated stuff to that too. If you remember the Yeti that she meets, it used to be we cut to her with the Yeti, and she's braiding his hair, and then she goes, "Oh no, he didn't, girlfriend. You gotta stand up for yourself. Don't let him treat you like that." And it didn't quite work either. It wasn't quite on voice. Oh, and then the last thing, this could be a fun game. Who can spot the first time pony rider mistake here? She's on the horses, they're racing towards Dead Pony's Ravine, and you can read, it's snoring sounds from Cherry's Jubilee. Pinkie Pie reaches for the reins, fumbles them, and they drop. The horses gallop faster. The horses can think and talk in this show, but I guess I forgot. And so they just went right over the side because they have no idea what they're doing. There were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 pages of notes, and at the end they said, "Thanks." So step 7, the polish. You know, the polish, the step where all you gotta do is just fix the last little things that are wrong with your otherwise perfect script that by now has been just written to perfection. So, I didn't know what to do. I was like, they should have fired me a long time ago. I don't know what we're gonna do. I wrote an email to Mitch that said, I think we have to start over. Addressing their notes on the script has turned it into an unfunny, unclear piece of garbage. What if we looked at removing all the things that caused their notes in the first place? And Mitch said, I agree completely. What if we got on the phone, hammered out a simple beat sheet, we could be in business. This got too overcomplexified trying to address everything. So we jumped on the phone, we talked it all out, and this may start to sound more like the episode. We came up with 5 points. This is all from an email. Pinkie Pie's goal needs to be concrete. Let's try to make Ponyville feel like Yak-Yakistan. And then number 2, the vision quest is never going to work as we conceived it. So what if we made it not existential? Instead, she's trying to get to Yak-Yakistan and find out what they want for a party. While she's gone, forget that B story about trying to really understand Pinkie Pie. It's just going to be jokes aplenty. Ponies and Spike trying to cheer them up, entertain them, install. And alas, she doesn't make it to Yak-Yakistan, but in failing, her friends discover the Pinkie Pie party planning cave, which they cheer her up. Those 2 stories come together, which gives her the big idea that we shouldn't be trying to make Equestria feel like they're home. We should be trying to make them feel at home in Equestria. And I vividly remember Mitch saying, if you make it sound like it flips it around, it sounds true. So that'll be a good friendship lesson. We were desperate. And so 24 hours later, Party Pooped, episode 501. It was pretty much exactly what aired. Except for one thing, and by this point I was just completely unprepared to push back on anything. I was just amazed that they said, we like it. And by the way, they meant we like it, here's another 12 pages of notes, but they were like very specific line changes and things like that. So I was like overjoyed. But I just wanted to point out, there was one scene that I agreed, okay, let's just cut it, but in hindsight, I wish we hadn't, because I think it did an important job in the script, which is, you know, there's 2 kinds of stakes. There's the actual stakes, the physical stakes, which is burning Equestria to the ground, but there's emotional stakes too, and I didn't really prepare a cohesive argument for why we should keep this scene, but the very first scene, after the Yaks arrive and they trash everything, after the theme song, it originally opened up with a soft scene with Twilight and 3 Yaks walking through that was some other joke, forget about that. But it opened with this scene where Twilight says, don't worry about the mess back there, we'll get it all cleaned up, I'm just glad you arrived safely. And Prince Rutherford said, if things not perfect, Yaks get mad. Yaks always get mad when things not perfect. She said, I know Yaks have short tempers, but that's not gonna stop us from becoming friends. And she leads into a balcony overlooking Ponyville, and the Yaks are taken aback by the beautiful view. Yaks have no friends. Yaks don't know why. Twilight says it could be any number of reasons, really, not necessarily because you smash everything when you get mad. Either way, I promise that by tomorrow morning, ponies and Yaks will be best friends. For 1,000 moons? She nods. Now, I know you've never left Yak-Yakistan, so we planned a whole day filled with things to remind you of home. Does that sound good? Pony nice. Yaks like nice pony. And Twilight's a little embarrassed, and she says, enjoy the view. I'm gonna round up the welcoming committee, and we're gonna get to it. And I wish we kept that, because I do think it would have been really nice to care about why the Yaks need friends, and why it matters if they have friends or not. But by that point, I was just so relieved that I wasn't fired that I didn't say anything about it at all. So I shared it with you guys, and I hope you enjoyed hearing the story of Party Poop and my journey in sadness.